Hello, 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 you guys, and welcome to another episode in the Creative Black Woman series where we highlight bold, fearless, creative Black women who are shaping music, art, business, and culture. Today, we have a really dynamic guest, you guys, and that is, I'm sorry, Sabine Hayes. Sabine is, in fact, an interior designer whose work has been exclaimed across the world. So without further ado, let me bring Sabine on. Hello, Sabine. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of this and allowing us to highlight you as a creative. I am looking forward to hearing more about your work in the I'm so tongue tied right now. I do apologize. In the interior design space and to find out more about you because from my understanding there are so few of us in this space. So let's get into it. Let's talk about your inspirations, your love for interior design. You, in your pre-interview, you talked a lot about your late mother and your grandmother inspiring your love. What lessons did they teach you about creating a home that feels warm and personal?
They were incredibly influential. My first thought is really that goes towards my grandmother. And even though I lived, with my mom, just going to my grandmother's house, she lived in Manhattan. And so I just always remember going into the city and city living is small, so real estate is really small, but even in her apartment it just felt, if you felt so inviting, you felt she was always such a great host. She loved hosting friends and having small gathers. She was a pianist, so she used to play, piano in her apartment. And it was just, I just always remember family gatherings at home. And home was an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment that she had in Manhattan, but it felt, I have some of the best memories there. And
I bet
it
it felt so big just to
it
be
did.
in.
It did. Because like as a kid, the beauty of the city is people move to the city not only to live in the city, but you mostly live outside of your home. So
Yeah.
outside of your home, like the restaurants and the shops and just walking down the street and having like easy access to a bunch of things, that was almost an extension of home. So I had that like balance. And so I always, and to this day, I always love the city. I always have like an appreciation just for the vibe that the city living brings. But then on the other hand, living with my mom, we lived in major cities, but like right outside the city. So I spent a lot of my childhood right outside Boston, and then we moved to New Jersey. And even though we didn't live in the city, just being home just felt comfortable, um, even though we did not have a lot of like major luxuries. It just the comfort of home and wanting home being a place that I felt comfortable, that I could be myself in, that I could feel relaxed. It was almost like a haven. And so those are some of the best memories. And again, she loved hosting too, so our doors were always open and family celebrations were always at her house. And just the love that I saw my mom and my grandmother have for others, that they opened their door and everybody that came through the doors felt welcomed. Like you never came to our house and you didn't feel like, wow, I feel like an appreciated guest. So that's one of the things that I try to, like, I love hosting. So that's one of the things that I have kind of carried and gotten from them too.
Okay, now you took the leap and launched Georgette Marise Interiors in 2015. What was the most challenging part of stepping into entrepreneurship for you?
I think the unknown.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship can sometimes, look very sexy, and, you can make your own hours, you could be your own boss, but there's a lot. It's definitely not for the weak. And so it's very different. It's a different mindset, really. coming from working from for somebody else, you have the blueprint of what you need to do for the day, for the month, for the year, right? But then when you're an entrepreneur, you have to create that for yourself. And so it was almost like wearing two hats. And I always say, as a creative, it can be a blessing and a challenge at the same time, because you have your creative mind and then you have your logical mind, and they're like on both sides of the brain. So, loving what you do. I love my craft, but then it was also entering entrepreneurship is wearing this entire different hat of the logistics, of the finances, of building a teamwork, building a team, building a system, and all of those things.
Okay. Now, as a Haitian Cuban American, how does your cultural heritage sort of influence your approach to interior design?
I love this question, because, like you said in the beginning, there's not that many of us in the field.
Yeah,
Like, even going to art school, I think I can count how many people looked like me that were brown skin. And so, that's one thing. And then another layer is bringing my cultural background. Now, I grew up with my mom who was Haitian, and she just had, I don't know, she just had this life about her. And I remember going to Haiti as a kid a couple times and just kind of appreciating the culture and everything that encompasses. And art, we always had art around the house. We always, whether that was Haitian art, whether that was art that, my grandmother collected that she gave to my mom, we always had art. And so, and I even have some of the pieces that she has. And so, just loving the work of local artists, that have paintings of, the life down there. So, to this day, like, palm trees, just, I don't know, anytime I see palm trees, like, palm trees just bring me happiness. Um, but those are some of the things, like the rich colors, and like the woods, the deep woods. So I gravitate towards those
those styles.
styles.
Okay.
And then I mix them with, a whole bunch of other styles too, like metropolitan living. Like I said, I love the city, so I have touches of those as well. But the Haitian culture, definitely, or the Caribbean culture, really, because Cuban, when you look at Cuban art, it's very similar. It's
Yeah.
very like curvilinear lines and rich woods and rich colors, and it's just vibrant. So I tend to gravitate towards those.
Now, you mentioned your different styles, your blend of Art Deco, Art Nouveau, tropical, and boho aesthetics is shows up in your work. How do you merge different styles while keeping spaces cohesive and functional?
Well, my favorite part of interior design is that when I'm designing someone's home, I'm literally trying to bring their personality into their home. So it becomes now less about me, but then I also push the boundaries some, and that's why people hire me too, is to
Yeah,
give them a little bit of the unexpected. And so after finding out, some of their loves and things that they need, and desire, I love kind of adding a little bit of those, like, doses, because I call myself eclectic. So that's really a merge of all different styles. So a little bit of traditional, classic, because I love a timeless look. Like, trends are great, but trends go in and out.
yeah.
What's trendy one decade, the next decade is going to be completely out of style. But I also have an appreciation for timeless
Those
design. So
pieces that just translate across.
yeah, they'll
Yeah.
never go out of style. Yeah, they'll never go out of style. Those, I would say, is like the basis, the base, the foundation, and then whatever is trendy, I usually add those in, like, small doses. So for me, I always say, like, a home is like a book, and then every room is like a different chapter. So it has its own personality, but they all belong in the same book.
I love that. Now, what's one interior design myth or misconception that you wish more people understood?
Well, one of the things that I see a lot is people, especially like with Pinterest, and I mean, back in the day, like we had tons of magazines we used to flip through to get like different inspiration, which those things are great. Um, and you could use somebody else's house as an inspiration. You could use something on Pinterest or a magazine. But it's so important to define what you like. It's so important for you, for people to understand that you like your house doesn't have to look like your best friend's house. Your house doesn't have to look like, your neighbor's house. Like it should look uniquely yours. And that's okay. You might like something that maybe your girlfriend doesn't like, and that's okay. And it's okay to, again, trends are great, to hop on different trends. Like I know right now, colors, like color layering, are all, really hot right now. White is kind of like fading out, but like 5 years ago, all white was in. And so those are great, but I wish that people were more open, and maybe they just don't know how to do it, but
Yeah.
really bring their personality to the space, and I see that a lot. Like they just kind of want to copy what they see, or they're like, oh, my friend had this, so I want this too. But it's okay to step out and use things that you gravitate towards and that mimic your personality.
It's funny that you say that because my next question sort of asks that. You focus on personalization in your work. How do you get to know a client's personality and translate that into their home design?
I consider myself an approachable interior designer because a lot of times people think of interior design and they're like, oh, I don't know if I need an interior designer. I don't know if they'll judge me, or, and so I really kind of pride myself in, like, I feel like I am one of those interior designers that you can easily approach, that it's easy to have a conversation with. So I really just get to know my clients, whether that is through the consultation, whether that's, finding out information through a simple questionnaire, whether that's asking them questions of like, how do they want to feel in the space? What is their lifestyle like? Like who lives in the home? Like really trying to understand how they live in their home, what they're looking for, what their hobbies are, because you could find out a lot by what people love to do and how they spend their time.
Absolutely.
And so all of those things are really helpful for me to know, because those are things that I can kind of incorporate in while I'm designing their home.
Okay. Now, many of your clients are female homeowners and entrepreneurs. What unique design challenges do you help them solve?
With women, a lot of times it kind of goes back to the not feeling confident in their home, meaning, they know what they like, they know what they don't like, but then they kind of struggle with putting it all together. And
Hmm.
then but then when you struggle with that, you don't feel like your space reflects who you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes that could show up with, oh my gosh, I can't have anybody over because it looks a mess, or, I don't want, people to look at my home and, like I know people that they don't have any pictures of their family on the walls. They don't have any pictures of even anything that even mimics their style. Like they're just picking things from like Home Goods, or, Home Sense, or, just random pieces of artwork that quote unquote may look good, but it doesn't tell their story. And so I feel like, especially as women, because we tend to be the host in our households, it doesn't reflect who they really are. And so that's what I love accomplishing. Like there's nothing wrong with getting, a mass produced artwork, but what do you really love? Like whether you like taking pictures as a hobby when you're traveling, let's put that on the wall. You've collected something from your travels, let's put that on the wall, because nobody else is going to have that.
I like that. Now, color and texture play a big role in your designs. What advice do you have for someone who wants to introduce bold colors and textures into their home without feeling so overwhelmed?
That's great because it can be overwhelming. I know most people fear color, but they don't
Hmm.
dislike color and they
I'm
don't
one
know
of
how.
those people.
Yeah. Because you can use color the wrong way.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
one of the I'm real basic, black and white, because I feel like sometimes if I mix and match, it's not gonna come out the way I think I want it to come out. So,
Right. I actually did like a mini course, Design 101, and that was one of the questions that kept coming a lot is that I love color, but I don't know how to use it properly. And that's a fear that many people have. And yeah, if you stick to black and white, you can't go wrong.
mhm.
But I usually say color is very psychological. Like you can have certain colors that bring you down, you could have certain colors that energize you. So you see this a lot in marketing, and so I had one person that was like, it's hard for me to go to sleep, maybe I should change my wall color. Her wall color was like a bright yellow. Well,
Okay.
yellow is a
Yeah,
very
yellow is a
energizing color.
okay.
It's a very energetic color. So I think I like to kind of walk through just understanding color, like the difference between warm colors and cool colors, and what those mean, and even understanding like the basic meanings of color too. That also helps, because yeah, you can't have a yellow bedroom and then wondering why you're not getting any rest. So really understanding color and how you want to feel in a space. Like I've had clients that especially a lot of clients that work in the medical profession, a lot of times they're like, Sabine, my job is extremely stressful and I just need my home to feel calm. So I'm not
Yeah.
going to put yellow in there. I'm not going to put like, I might put like maybe a soft yellow or a soft hue of yellow, but I'm not going to put like a bright sunshine yellow, in their space. And so their color palette is going to be a little bit more subdued. And so I use the word color palette, and what that really means is like a series of colors. So you might have like 5 or 7 colors that you use throughout a room or you use throughout your home. And so that's usually a good guideline. And that also includes neutrals. So for example, if you like black and white, but then maybe you want to introduce some blues, and figuring out what colors go together. So there's colors that complement each other, there's colors that contrast each other. Um, and so that I usually kind of like walk through with my client of just understanding what colors go together, what colors contrast, because when you contrast colors, that adds like interest. Like black and white, those are contrasting colors because they're
Mhm.
opposites, but they go really well together. So I usually recommend start small. Like start small. So if you want to do neutral base, like we could do neutral furniture, we could do neutral wall colors, and then add pops of color in art, pillows, throws, like in small doses, like small accessories. That's a good place to start.
That's a real good place to start because true. Have you ever walked into somebody's home and they just got color everywhere and you're just like
Whew. Oh
confused?
yeah. Because you have to think about it too, and I explain it this way. When you walk into a space, your eye, like you have to allow your eye to rest. And
Yeah,
so you have to really, like when you're designing a space, like you tell the eye what to look at first. It's like an outfit. Like I always relate
just
interior design to
finding
fashion.
that focal point. Yes,
That focal point. And
yeah.
so, what's the main thing that you want people to pay attention to? Like, if you want a wow wall, that's great, but where's the eye going next? Everything can't be wow.
So you got a wow wall, a wow sofa, a wow
You
coffee
end up with a
table.
headache.
I mean, then you got all these eccentric pictures all over the walls.
Yes.
So now you walking around, you just as confused as you want to be. You can't have a clear thought in the space because it's just
Nope.
all over the place. Yeah.
I think the best way I relate it is fashion, like putting an outfit
Yeah.
together. Like if you have busy, I have one of my friends, she's a stylist. Like if you have like, very heavy earrings, you might have like a necklace, but you can't have the necklace outshine the earrings, or the other way around. If the necklace is the statement piece, your earrings are going to complement it, but you can't have everything like wow, like
Yeah.
big
Like,
earrings, big necklace, big bracelets, big
and then
dress
statement shoes too. Yeah.
with statement shoes. Because then you're
Yeah.
like, well,
You like,
there
well,
has to
which
be.
piece? Yeah.
There
What
has
am
to
I
be something
looking
that
at on
takes
you?
center stage.
Yeah. It's like, what am I looking? Am I looking at your hat? Am I looking at your earrings? Am I looking at your shoes? What am I looking at on you?
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And that, yes, I get that, because that's how you feel sometimes walking into people's homes. You're like, okay, have you, like, walking in, and sometimes you're immediately stopped in your thought
Mhm.
because it's just a confusing place to be. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. And
Okay.
so you don't have to be afraid of color, but just make sure you use it right. And so
Okay.
I usually recommend just start small.
Okay. Now, the interior design industry can feel exclusive and intimidating. What advice do you have for women who want to make their homes stylish without feeling pressured by trends?
That's an excellent question, because it kind of goes back to how do you want to feel in the space? There are rules of thumb, that there are rules to follow, and those are good guidelines. And as an interior designer, we kind of, we break the rules, but we know how to break the rules. So I would say if you're not an interior designer, try to stay with the rules because they're there for a reason. But there are some great guidelines as far as like space planning and, putting color palettes together. Those are great guidelines to kind of stay by. There's like we always use odd numbers, for example. Odd numbers tend to be a great balance for the eye. So if you're gonna have something on your coffee table, you use the rule of either having one statement piece or maybe having three pieces. So those are all good guidelines, but try to really ask yourself, like, how do I want to feel in this space? How do I want this space to function? Like, what do I want to do in this space? Like, if it's your home office, for example, that you're working on, is your home office also a playroom? Is your home office a library? Is your home office also a guest room? Like, figure out what you want that space to function and how do you want to feel, because that's going to dictate what you need. That's going to dictate the colors you choose. That's going to dictate the furniture that you put in the space. And you could have one room that serves multiple needs, but really asking yourself, how do you want it to feel and function? And then you can kind of go towards like the things that you gravitate towards. Like I use fashion a lot because I always say interior design follows fashion a lot of times with textures and colors. So typically what's trending in fashion kind of goes over to interior design. And so with things that are trendy, for example, again, do them in small doses. So if there's like a fabric that's trendy, maybe not do the entire sofa in that, but maybe just do a pillow,
Yeah.
as a statement piece, unless you want to buy, unless because you're gonna be tired of it.
You're gonna get
So
tired of it. Yeah, yeah.
you're gonna be tired of it.
Unless you plan on reupholstering that sofa,
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years from now, you're gonna get tired of looking at it. So yeah.
Right. And pay attention to how something makes you feel. Like I remember I love pattern. I love wallpaper. But I loved wallpaper before it was even trending. But for me, I use pieces that like speak to me. So there's pieces, especially like artwork, and
I was
I
just
remember
gonna say you
putting
can create artwork from wallpaper.
you
So
can
yeah.
create, yes, you can. And so I pay attention to the things that I gravitate towards. Like I remember I added a wallpaper in like my kitchen area, have like a banquette. And that wallpaper, I remember flipping through a bunch of wallpaper, and that wallpaper made me smile. Like I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm like, that's the one. And I love looking at it every day. It's not something that I get tired of. But everything else that's around it is also like neutral because it's so loud. I make sure that it's balanced by, other things that are really subdued so it can kind of like stand out. So I would encourage people to really pay attention to what you gravitate towards. Like what do you like? When you're looking at a piece of artwork, like what do you like about it? If you can't stop looking at it, that's a good sign that, you like that
You like
artwork.
it a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, often women, just on a whole, struggle with imposter syndrome, but it's even more prevalent when stepping into their creative power, so to speak. How do you help your clients build confidence with your own unique design styles?
So I love helping people kind of find their, because the confidence is there a lot of times, but it's kind of hidden. And so
Yeah.
I love the reaction that I get after I design someone's home, because most of the time what they say is, "Oh my gosh, I could have never done this on my own," or "I would have never put this together, but I love it. I don't know why I love it, but I love it," you know?
Yeah.
So because I'm kind of not testing them, that I'm breaking the boundaries of their comfort zone
I
of
was
what
gonna
they
say you're pushing them
typically.
outside of
Yeah,
their
I'm
comfort
yes,
zone.
thank you. I'm pushing them outside of their boundaries. And so based off of the information that they've been telling me, I have been using what they love using, but then I add a little bit of that extra, that it could be adding a new color that they didn't think of. It could be adding a texture or pattern. Maybe they're afraid of patterns, or maybe they just love color and I'm introducing them to neutrals. But the end result is the most important, and I love seeing them shine. Like, oh, I had one of my good friends just bought her first home a couple years ago, and she was embarrassed because she had nothing in her dining room, like nothing. Like it was just empty. And she loves hosting and she has a big family. And so she's like, I have to do my dining room. It's one of the first rooms you see when you walk into the house, and it's embarrassing. There's nothing in there. And so after we finished her dining room and we, installed everything, one of her first reaction is, "Oh my gosh, I can host dinner now." Which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was everything. It
Yeah,
was everything. She was like, "I don't have to feel embarrassed. Like people can come over."
yeah. She was feeling it because she wasn't feeling like it was a part of herself. But once you came in and made it, she was like, "Yes, I can do this
I
now."
could do this now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, every designer hits a creative block from time to time. What do you do when you feel creatively stuck?
Oh my gosh, it happens often. That's why, like, for me personally, I can't speak for every designer, but most creatives are in the same boat. Like, as a creative, you are creating for
Yes.
everyone else. And that means you're problem solving, that means you're putting out fires, that means that, like, your brain is constantly in overload. Like when you're creative, you never stop
You
thinking.
never stop.
You're thinking about that person's project in the shower while you're driving, like, oh
You'll see
yeah,
inspiration in
you'll see
everything.
inspiration, so your brain is always
Yeah.
going. But then there comes a time where you're just mentally exhausted, like
Yeah.
nothing inspires you anymore. You're tired. You don't even you feel like designing is now work, you know? That's usually my sign that, like, okay, I just need a
Yeah.
mental break. And so that mental break for me a lot of times is, sometimes it means going away, because I love nature. So I am inspired by nature, whether that is, spending time in a cabin in the woods, whether that's going to an island somewhere, whether that is just going into the city for the day, and, finding that inspiration where I'm not thinking about a person's project. I'm not thinking about my house. I'm not thinking about an assignment. I'm
Mhm.
just living, and I
Yeah.
love being inspired by just living, because now I'm like, one of my favorite things is, when I drive in the morning, like I take my daughter to school, I love, and it's early, so it's usually when the sun is rising, and I love looking just at the skyline. It has like all the beautiful colors. Like there's a little bit of like that pinkish color, then there's like the soft yellows, then there's a little bit of the blues. Like, I'm like, this is nature's color palette. So
Yes.
something that simple is just inspirational to me, but it's just because I'm just living. So those are usually my mental breaks of just not thinking about anything, but just living and just being inspired by my surroundings.
Okay. Now, your morning routine includes stillness, prayer, and gratitude. How does it affect the way you approach your designs?
Sometimes when I'm going into a project, it's a lot, right? Like it's a lot. You
Okay.
have deadlines, you have budgets, you have different things that the client needs, and it could be a lot. And so I just need a sense of stillness for
Yeah.
each day. And then there's just life on top of that. So I just need a time where I could just kind of be still. I'm big on my faith, so that for me, that's journaling, that's praying, that's meditating. That really helps me to just be centered, because I see what I do as a gift, and so I want to always approach it that way. And yeah, it's work, but I also see it as a craft, and I love my craft.
I
Like if
love
I, it, there is something. If you don't love, and this is probably for every creative, if you come to a point where you don't love your craft and it just feels like an assignment, then you probably just need a break and realize, okay, why did I even get into this industry? Like asking your kind of like falling in love with the craft again. And even athletes I know talk about that too, like loving their craft, loving the sport, loving the game.
and
And
losing
that's
it after. Yeah.
yeah. So I always just want to fall in love with, and I don't want to get tired because it is work, but I don't want to get tired of the craft.
Okay. Now, let's talk about something that we mentioned earlier. Black women in the interior design space are so underrepresented. How have you navigated this space and what changes would you like to see happen?
I've been in the industry now for about 21 years, and there's been a lot of growth. I will say that, because when I was in art school, there wasn't like I said, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. And
Mhm.
so, and even to this day, when people find out I'm an interior designer, they're like, really?
Yeah.
What? And it's like, what does that mean? And then they find that I'm Haitian, and so it's just like, so that's even more of like a
Uh,
what?
like
And
that
so
doesn't make sense to get.
it doesn't. And then, but then also people they confuse interior decorator from interior design.
Yes.
So, so there's a difference there as well. And so I've gotten so used to that, but at the same time, I've always taken that as fuel, because the beauty about art is when you look at artists, the ones that stand out, the ones that are memorable, like the more you stand out, the more memorable you are. And as an artist, as a creative, you want to be able to separate your uniqueness from everyone else, And so that's honestly something that started off as, am I good enough? Self-doubt, like when I was in art school. Because I remember I had one professor that told me I wanted to do set design when I was in college. I was just interested in set design. And he was like, unless you're white, male, or gay, your chances are very slim. And I was like, well, dag.
Man,
I
you
have
just
none
shut
of the
all the
above.
doors right there, right?
I'm like, I have none of the above. And so I just remember, and I never got into set design, but I just remember those feelings of, and even like we could talk about the hair. And so feeling like, okay, when I go to a job interview, am I going to be respected because of the way my hair looks? And I had permed hair back then. But even making the decision to go natural, like all of those insecurities came
Yes.
back. Like, how am I going to be received? Am I going to be taken seriously? You know? But now I feel like the more I stand out, the more I'm different, the more I'm memorable, and I want to be memorable. So if I could be different, whether that starts from my story of being a Haitian American, a Haitian Cuban American, whether that's my name, whether
Mhm.
that's, my style, all of those things make me unique, because being a creative, there are so many of us out there, but people hire you because they trust you. People hire you because of your uniqueness.
Yes.
And so it's not a competition, but it's beautiful to see other women, other men and women that look like me, because I feel like representation matters,
Yes.
seeing more people that look like us, because we need more people in the field.
Yes.
And there's been just a lot of talk about what beauty is, because for so long, what was considered beautiful, like in the art world, was inspired by, European history, European,
Yes.
that was what was taught. And so, like, even when you look at artwork and inspiration, like there's so much more world than
That's
just Europe.
yeah. And
And
that's so
so
funny because I swear it's like your answers are leading to my next question.
it's organic.
Yeah. So there has been this growing conversation about preserving and celebrating Black culture or African heritage in just different spaces. How do you
Mhm.
incorporate that cultural storytelling into your home design projects?
That's a great question. Well, for me, it's all about the person that's using the space,
Hmm.
And so not all of my clients are going to want Haitian art or Cuban art or, or Black inspired art. So I go off of their story, their culture, their what they want to bring in their own home. But I also know that they hired me for a reason, whether that's they love my style, they feel like I'm similar to them, or they feel like they can trust me. So what the biggest thing, I remember there was an art teacher that said something that was profound. I still remember it to this day. They said you don't have to like every style, because when you think of style, I
Yeah.
mean, it ties in with history. There's so many countless styles from around the world. You don't have to like every style, but you need to appreciate every style. You need to have an appreciation. And so I love my diverse clients. I have clients from so many different walks of life, from so many different backgrounds, and I have learned about other people's cultures. Like at one point I had a huge clientele that was Asian Indian. And so and and some of those clients wanted things from their Hindu religion, and I didn't know anything about that as a Black Christian woman. But now researching of like, okay, well, what does this signify? What does this mean? Like, why is this color important? Why is this texture? Those are all fascinating. I may not be able to relate to that because it's a different culture for me. Um, but it's so fascinating because I can appreciate it,
Yeah.
And so what I love about tapping into or bringing people's personalities into their space is that I'm learning from them as much as they're learning from me. So, and I love showcasing that. And even in my, I mean, I say that it's less about me and more about the client, but through my personality, through my story, I now kind of showcase that,
Yeah.
my own culture, because all of my clients, I mean, I'm like an open book when it comes to who I am, my background, my inspiration. I mean, I named my business after my late grandmother and my mom. So a lot of my clients know that, my family's from the islands, um and so they know it's almost like they're getting a piece of that in their projects, and that kind of, perspective, or that I guess that inspiration, or my perspective of, who I am, or my upbringing. So
I
that's
love that.
something that I bring into every project.
I love that. Now, you're celebrating 10 years of Georgette Marise um, Interiors with a special soiree, so to speak.
hmm
Looking back, what's been your proudest moment in your career so far?
I've had so many of them. My favorite is, I love it because, especially when you're working with larger projects and full renovation projects, there are so many bumps. There's so many bumps. You start off and the client is like happy and they're excited. And then there are deadlines that are pushed back. There are things that go wrong, and it could be like a little bit of a roller coaster, and through different emotions too, especially if somebody's never gone through like a full renovation project. So for me as a designer, I've been here before, but all I keep thinking about is, as a designer, every project that I start with, no matter what size of project, my goal is to get to the finish line. Because I'm like, if I can get to the finish line, if I can get the client to the finish line, like that's the prize. And every time
Yes.
we get to the finish line, I love the reaction. I'm like, this is what I do it for.
Yes.
Um, I remember one client, we were doing their dining room and they were hosting for Thanksgiving, and we literally finished like the day before Thanksgiving. Putting this dining room
Woo!
together. And
Yeah.
it was I mean, they had like people coming over, they had family coming from out of town. So it was almost like getting ready for like a performance, like backstage. We were just
You were
um
literally finishing their dining room while they were entertaining guests.
for Thanksgiving. Not even like oh, we're just having friends over. Like, this is Thanksgiving.
And Thanksgiving is huge.
Thanksgiving
So,
is huge. And so no pressure at all.
okay.
And so I remember, and usually towards the end, I usually send the clients away, whether it's like go leave the house, just go to another section of the house. Like, I want it to be a surprise, especially like when it's a big renovation project. And I remember when they came in and everything was finally done. Like, I mean, artwork was being hung up, paint was being dry, like just it was. And so I remember when they walked in and we told them to close their eyes. Like, we made a big deal out of it. And then when they opened their eyes, they were like one of their reactions was like, "Oh my gosh, this feels like we're in a restaurant."
Yeah.
And it just that simple just feeling like, I'm I I'm like, I can't make this up. Like, I love it. I love it satisfies me every single time. So it's like it makes all of those hurdles and bumps and disappointments and, you know, um challenges throughout the project worth it, because they loved it and it surpassed what they could have dreamed of. Like, when people compare their dining rooms to a restaurant, that's like the biggest compliment. When you feel like your living room is like a lounge that you're like, is this from a magazine? Do I live here? That's the biggest compliment.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Now, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in nearly a decade of running your own business?
whew, there's so many of them. There's so many of them. I think pivoting, being open to pivoting, and so a lot of times you think you know the path. Um but with business, things are always changing. Things are
Yes.
always moving so fast, and just being able to adapt. And so that means trusting the people that are around you. That means learning different processes. And like we talked about trends. So that means, keeping up with what's trending, what people are looking for. Because like when I was in art school, like, you hired a designer because like you trust them. You're like, okay, I can't see the vision, but like I just trust you. Now we live in a day and age where people want instant gratification. They want to see it, they want to envision it before it even exists.
Yes. They literally want you to draw up the plans and show them how it's gonna look before it
Yeah,
even comes. Yeah.
before, yeah. And so that's probably been the biggest change for me. It's like, whoa, can we just trust the process? And they're like, yeah, that's good. We just need to see it though. I need to see where it's going. I need to see exactly what's going to look like, because I can't envision it. So
Okay.
that's probably been the biggest lesson, is being able to just pivot and adjust with technology and the clientele, because this clientele now is so different than the clientele. They're so much more educated, there's so much more information out there. But there's also a reason why. You could have all the information in the world, there's still a reason why you're going to hire a creative, you're going to hire an interior designer, because you could have
Yeah.
all the information, it doesn't mean that you could still put it all together yourself.
Yeah. So you recently launched the Belfon Candle Collection, which blends home design with scent and sensory experience. What inspired you to create this collection?
So I love candles. I have candles in just about every room. Like when we were growing up, my mom always had candles. Like the house always had to smell good. And I just always had this love for scent, but not only scent, it's also like the flickering of a candle. Like I know there's candle warmers and there's diffusers. Like we have diffusers and we have room sprays and you could also wax, so you can experience scent in different ways, but there's always been something about a candle that I just loved. And so for the longest I always wanted to either collaborate with a company to maybe have my own candle line, or maybe partner with a company. I never found the right company. And last year, I had the opportunity to partner with a candle maker, and I was so excited because I was like, this is my opportunity to create like my own scent. And so that was like such a fun process for me. And so one of my favorite scents has always been vetiver. And then doing research, vetiver is actually grown in not that many places, but Haiti is one of the places, and also
Hmm.
India. And so, and then I remember talking to another Haitian who's big into like history and the culture, and she was saying that a lot of back in the day, a lot of the luxury perfumes would buy vetiver from Haiti. So
Yep.
when you think of like, and so I was like, that was even more significant for me. And so being able to come up with that combination of vetiver and vanilla orchid and other scent notes,
Oh, I bet that
um,
just smells amazing.
that one sets people back. They're like, whoa. So it's a whole so kind of like how I love seeing the reaction of people like when they walk into their space. That's I when people experience the scent, I sit there and I just kind of watch their reaction because it's always a different reaction and I love it. So I have two scents right now. The Luxe Noir, everything has a French, with the Haitian culture. I have everything has like a French meaning, a French kind of theme to it. So Luxe Noir, which is French for black luxury, that's the
Hmm.
vetiver and the vanilla. And then I have the Elegant, which is French for elegant, and that one is matcha tea and bergamot because I love
Oh,
everything bergamot. Oh my gosh.
oh, oh! I'm not just hearing you name, and I love all of the scents that you have named. I can only imagine. I'm gonna have to order some, but I'm gonna have to do it after I move, so that I make sure that they get shipped to me in
Yeah.
Vietnam. But yes, I am absolutely. I'm looking forward to smelling these scents.
Yeah, it's and then so then after I did the candles, and then of course the interior designer in me is like, well, you just can't have a candle. So there's the packaging, there's the,
Yes,
because I want you to just have not only have the candle, but I want it to flow with the rest of the
to fit
decor.
into your yeah.
And so that was important to me. So it was a fun process. It was really a fun process. And I've been doing pop-ups, introducing. So I started with the candles, and it allowed me to also collaborate with other small business owners with the pop-up. So that was great. Like the first pop-up, my friend owns a luxury lingerie boutique in the city. And so that was our first pop-up. And then the second pop-up was to introduce the diffusers because not everybody loves candles, but they still love
Yeah,
scent. And the diffusers have been great, especially with open houses with realtors. They're like, oh, this is a good way of making the house smell good without having to worry about,
yeah, yeah,
leaving candle unattended.
yeah.
And then we also introduce room sprays in those scents. So there's multiple ways that people can experience those scents.
Okay. Now, my last question for you is: when people reflect on your work years from now, what do you hope your legacy as a designer will be?
Ooh, what do I hope my legacy as a designer will be? I want to be known I want to be known for being able to bring out the best in people. And so when I think about my grandmother, when I think about my mom, those are one of the things that they, especially like my mom always loved to see the best in people. Like she always wanted to see people advance. And, we talked about I believe everybody has a gift, and that's what makes you unique. And so I love that as an interior designer, I can help people shine, and through their homes, and so, um, that they can like live in spaces that they're proud of, and so it'll be less about me, but how I helped them shine.
Okay.
That's what I hope.
Okay. Well, Sabine, I am going to drop off the screen for a moment. And what I'd love for you to do is to tell people where they can find you, your social media, your website, all of that information so that they can connect with you.
Okay. So again, I'm Sabine Guillaume Hayes. I am a principal interior designer at Georgette Marise Interiors, and I could be found on all of the socials. So I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I'm even on Substack because I love writing. So I have a newsletter. So you could find me on Substack as well, and that's Georgette Marise Interiors. So all of the taglines are at Georgette Marise. And yeah, and I would love to connect. You could also find me on my website, which is georgettemarise.com.
And we will be sure to include all of that information in the articles that we release and write about you, Sabine. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time today and for doing this interview and for introducing us into another aspect of interior design. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, this was so much fun. It felt like a fun conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, you guys, you have to go out there and support Sabine and what it is that she's doing. Sabine Hayes is proving that home design is more than just aesthetics. It's about creating spaces that tell a story, reflect your personality, and enhance your everyday life. Her passion for multifunctional cultural storytelling and personal expression has made her a standout voice in the world of interior design. If you want to work with Sabine, shop her Belfond candle collection, or just see any of her latest projects, visit her website. And again, Sabine, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, creativity, and vision with us today. And with that, that's been another beautiful Black female creative, and we'll see you next time. Bye, you guys.